Welcome in, everybody, to our YouTube channel here at Fantasy Pros. I am Lauren Carpenter, and this is 5 burning questions for week 14. Number 5. Was Travis Kelce a first-round bust? If you did draft him in the first round, then it certainly feels like he is. You drafted him because he was supposed to be the cheat code and the most bankable tight end in the NFL for fantasy. Entering week 14, only Rob Gronkowski has scored more fantasy points per game. This is true whether you use PPR or half PPR scoring. Of course, Gronk has missed a lot of time, and if you go by the total fantasy points, then Kelce is still the king. Diving into Kelce specifically, his yards per route run is at an all-time low with 1.81. He has been at or above 2.09 dating back to every year since 2016. His 7.7 average depth of target is also noticeably down from his 2017 through 2020 peak, when it was between 8.9 and 9.6 in each season. The Chiefs' offense hasn't been as elite this year. The question becomes, is that partly due to Kelce's decline, or is Kelce's decline a product of Kansas City's struggles? I use the word decline very loosely. Kelce hasn't technically been as good in 2021, but he's still the tight end 2 in points per game and the tight end 1 overall. Is there anyone else that you'd rather have at his position entering the fantasy playoffs? You likely drafted Travis Kelce not just for the points, but for the safety. And considering how many running backs that were drafted in the first round that aren't playing the rest of the season, it certainly looks like Travis Kelce is that safe option that you drafted in the first round. Number 4. Have we seen the best of Elijah Moore? For his career, absolutely not. But for the 2021 season, it's hard to say, especially when he has a carousel of quarterbacks that he has to work with week in and week out. Since his Week 8 breakout against the Bengals, Moore ranks 8th among wide receivers in targets with 48, 6th in yards after the catch with 168, and 6th in yards per route run at 2.59. Now, Corey Davis is lost for the season. Moore is dealing with some pretty subpar quarterback play, as I mentioned, in Zach Wilson, but nothing really seems to be slowing him down. He also has had to deal with the likes of Mike White, Josh Johnson, and Joe Flacco. Earlier this year, Moore was being targeted when he was on the field. The issue was that he wasn't on the field as much as we wanted him to be. Now that his route percentage has reached full-time starter status, with Davis out of the picture, the rookie should be treated as a firm wide receiver too. Number 3. Is Devonta Freeman underrated? Now, Freeman isn't nearly as explosive as he used to be. It's very difficult to argue that. And if we're going to talk about a carousel of players with the Jets quarterbacks, we have to talk about a carousel of players with the Ravens running backs. The 29-year-old has quietly strung together some pretty usable fantasy performances over the past 5 weeks. Finding the end zone 3 times certainly helps, but week 13 saw Freeman handle a season-high 69% of the snaps. He's also handling most of the passing game work in addition to the goal line opportunities. It was easy to write him off earlier in the year when the Baltimore Ravens were still incorporating the likes of Tyson Williams and Le'Veon Bell. Now, Freeman only has to deal with Latavius Murray, and it seems as if he has won that internal battle. Not only that, Baltimore closes the season with some juicy matchups for the running back position in fantasy. Number 2. Is Leonard Fournette a league winner? It feels like we've taken the last few years and just erased them from the human timeline of fantasy existence. We're talking about players like the aforementioned Devonta Freeman. We're also talking about Adrian Peterson, and even Carlos Hyde is in the mix. So why not? Let's bring Leonard Fournette in and talk about him as a possible league winner in 2021. Entering this season, the Bucs' backfield looked like a possible 3-headed nightmare for fantasy purposes, but Fournette has fully taken the reins at this point. Not only has he iced Ronald Jones in early downs, but he has elevated Lombardi Lenny to full-fledged RB1 status and has been dominating in the passing game work as well. Fournette is either handling all of the long down and distance snaps or the full 2-minute work on a weekly basis. Some weeks he has handled both, which has rendered Giovanni Bernard an afterthought. Fournette hasn't been particularly special as an individual runner, ranking 33rd in Pro Football Focus's elusive rating and 46th in breakaway rate. He certainly isn't as explosive as he once was, though he's evading tackles at the second highest clip of his career. NFL Next Gen Stats has him ranking 20th in success rate when it comes to efficiency with his touches. Fournette isn't necessarily elite at any one specific trait, but it's the complete package that makes Fournette so intriguing when it comes to fantasy football, and he could even be considered a top 5 running back down the stretch. Number 1. Is Ezekiel Elliott completely washed? Now, this is a loaded question because in terms of real football, Ezekiel Elliott has been getting the job done and he's been finding the end zone outside of the 20s. Now, that's great for the Dallas Cowboys, but that is not so great for fantasy football, especially when you drafted him as early as the first round. Not only is Zeke not seeing the work inside the 20s like we are used to him seeing, but he has some stiff competition with Tony Pollard. In fact, if you compare their elusive rating, breakaway percentage, Next Gen Stats success rate, and Pro Football Focus's pass blocking, the differences are astronomical. In fact, Zeke ranks 54th, 43rd, 19th, 39th, while Tony Pollard ranks 8th, 6th, 4th, and 46th, respectively, for those categories. While Tony Pollard is more explosive and more elusive than Ezekiel Elliott, it's nearly impossible to try to recommend playing Tony Pollard over Ezekiel Elliott, especially with the matchups that the Cowboys are facing for the rest of the season. Now that's all you have from me, and that was 5 burning questions for week 14. Make sure you check out our very own Brendan Tuma's article, 5 burning questions for week 14, on our website at FantasyPros.com. Also, make sure you are following us on social media at FantasyPros, and if you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel here at Fantasy Pros so you don't miss out on all of the content that we put out just for you all year long.